could be a potential explanation. No one ever thought of it before.
Right, exactly. I mean, people haven't been working on that for hundreds of years now. Okay, so one thing I would say is first, we have at least more than this, but there are four pretty intensive educational interventions with primarily black children or black and white children that were aimed at boosting IQ. Oh, and we should say Arthur Jensen wrote an article in 1969, something along the lines of how much can we boost IQ? The answer was not much. And one of the things Jensen concluded, and again, this is 55 years before before Gusev came to the hitherto unknown idea that maybe education could explain this. The Jensen said, quote, "The techniques for raising intelligence per se, in the sense of G, probably lie more in the province of the biological science than in psychology and education." 55 years ago, and that remains like one of the more confirmed hypotheses in psychology, I would say. And so we have a number of these studies in which they've tried to boost intelligence, including Head Start. We have the Perry Preschool Project, we have the Milwaukee Project, we have the Abecedarian Project. And the amount of money that was poured into these studies is truly boggling. It baffles the mind. It's a lot of money. Often what happens with these, including with Head Start, is that you get exuberant claims, very optimistic claims of 10-point IQ games. But then when you look at them in more detail and you study the cohorts over time, those gains fade until they become virtually zero. What seems to happen, in other words, if there's not outright fraud, and I think there probably was in some of these, and there's reason to think so.
Interesting. I
The
didn't know that.
Milwaukee Project, the head of the Milwaukee Project was, for example, embezzling funds. I believe he went to jail, or at least he was convicted.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. And you know that the researchers involved in these projects are not neutral. I mean, they want to find something
It's
that
not an
boosts IQ.
adversarial
It
collaboration
is not
between
an ad.
hereditarians and environmentalists.
Right, right, that's right. So maybe there's fraud, but let's say there's not. Doesn't matter. There's another explanation for this, which is teaching to the test. So what you do is you have like in some of these, the Milwaukee Project and the Abecedarian Project, you had intensive tutoring, often one tutor to one or two or three kids at a time for hours in a day. And you figure like what's happening is they're teaching skills that are directly transferable in a narrow sense to a test, to an IQ test that you give. It would be the equivalent of maybe training somebody on a piano scale over and over and over that they will then take on a musical IQ test,
Mm.
right? And what we want to do is what we're trying to do is assess the actual latent intelligence. We can only do that through these manifest things. And if you teach to the test, that distorts the information the test is giving us, that it artificially inflates the score and it decreases the predictive validity.
Yeah.
Right. So what seems to be happening in these examples is teaching to the test. It turns out that over time, because you were teaching to the test, when you're taking newer tests, when you get older and you take a different IQ test, the skills are no longer transferable, and we're doing a better job of measuring their real IQ, as it
Right.
were, or their real, let's say, latent intelligence.
Mhm.